RCSD family. Welcome back for those who have joined us previously, and welcome to those who are joining us for the first time. My name is Khadijah Muhammad, and I am the Director for the Office of Parent Engagement. As we get started this evening, I just had a few reminders. Cameras are turned off so that speakers and ASL translators will be on the first screen for everyone. Participants were asked to submit questions in advance to reopening@rcsdk12.org, and you can continue to do so through all the parent sessions. Please visit www.rcsdk12.org/reopening for more details and future updates on the district's reopening plan. The objective for this forum is to provide information for families regarding the 2021 school year reopening. Today's session will begin with our Deputy Superintendent providing an overview of our current plan to reopen schools for the 2021 school year. Afterwards, we will begin our questions and answer facilitated by myself. Without further ado, I bring to you our Superintendent, Dr. Leslie Myers-Small.
Thank you, Khadijah. And again, welcome to our parents, caregivers, community members, and others who are joining us this evening for our Parent Reopening Forum. We are so honored to have the opportunity to take a few moments and review not only the history and how we arrived at this point, but also to share with you specifics relative to reopening plan. You will see that there are many staff on the screen. Right now they are blackened out, but we are here to really be a resource and to answer your questions. So after Deputy Superintendent Martinez Davis conducts a presentation, we'll spend a significant amount of time responding to questions. One thing you may notice is that we may repeat one or more questions, and we do that simply because we're not sure when people are joining us on screen. And it's important and it's more than okay for us to reiterate some questions and the responses. We thank you for taking time out of your schedules this evening to join us. And again, we look forward to serving your students come September 14th when we have our official first day of school. Deputy Superintendent Martinez Davis, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Myers-Small, and good evening to our RCSD family and community. I want to start this presentation by reminding everyone that a reopening plan was submitted to New York State on July 31st. New York State Education Department directed all districts to base these plans on its guidance document provisions and using the following components: teaching and learning, communication, family and community engagement, health and safety, child nutrition, transportation, social emotional well-being, school extracurricular and interscholastic activities, attendance and chronic absenteeism, special education, technology and connectivity, and bilingual education in world languages. So all districts had to have plans for each of these areas and have assurances that we could meet all of the state's expectations and requirements. So I'll begin with the teaching and learning component. We prepared 3 different scenarios for our New York State Education Department. The first scenario is the in-person learning, and that's when 100% of all our students come back to our campus. We also prepared a scenario for a hybrid remote learning and in-person learning. And this was the model that was going to be for our pre-K through 4 hybrid. And then our 5th to 12th grade would be remote. We also have a remote learning plan, which would be for all pre-K through 12 going on remote learning. So on August 7th, Governor Cuomo announced that the levels of COVID-19 were low enough to open schools in New York State. Districts must also post remote learning plans, testing and contact tracing plans online. We were required to schedule 5 discussion sessions with parents, and 5 of them because we are part of the big 5 school districts. And those meetings were for parents and caregivers like this one tonight before August 21st. We were also asked to have a discussion with our staff, and that took place yesterday, Wednesday, August 19th. Given the criteria around testing and contact tracing, the district has elected to utilize the remote learning model that I just spoke about for the first 10 weeks of school. This decision was made out of an abundance of caution to ensure the health and safety of all our students and staff. Now, we know that many parents had concerns already about sending their children to school. So we offered a choice of 100% remote learning. We did a survey about 2 weeks ago for our pre-K through 4 or K through 4 families and asked them if they wanted to have a hybrid option or a 100% remote learning option. And as of last Friday, the feedback that we had received from our families K through 4, a majority of our families had already chosen the remote learning option rather than the hybrid model of learning. Now we know that an urban district of this size has many unique challenges like transportation. Buses are an extension of the classroom, which leads to challenges when socially distancing the number of students we typically transport. Most notably, the CDC has indicated that there is increasing evidence that some ethnic minority groups are being disproportionately affected by COVID-19. So taking all of this into consideration, our superintendent made the decision for us to use the 100% remote learning plan that we had submitted to the state. So how does that work? We're going to be utilizing what we are calling synchronous and asynchronous learning. Synchronous learning happens when the student and the teacher are connected online at the same time. The student is connected online with their peers as well. So class is happening at that moment online, just like this meeting is happening right now. We would be using Zoom and Teams and Google Meet for that synchronous instruction to happen. We're also going to have asynchronous learning, which is learners proceed through the materials and work at their own pace and schedule. So they might not be connected online with a teacher or peers. It's when the students are working independently on the work that is assigned to them. So we're going to have both models of synchronous and asynchronous instruction during the remote learning. So for our pre-K through 6, we will have weekly instruction that will be provided using a modified schedule. And this schedule will include large and small group and independent learning opportunities. Large and small group time will be focused on instruction in English, language arts, and mathematics. Social studies, emotional development, and science will also be embedded throughout the day. Independent learning experiences will supplement the group learning experience. Elementary teachers will communicate the schedule to students and families prior to the start of each week. And every effort will be taken to be as flexible as possible while maintaining the equity of access to the instructional program. For our secondary students in 7 through 12, students will follow their class schedule to ensure consistency and continuity of instruction. This will eliminate conflicts, will build natural breaks like lunch into the day for the student, and will retain planning time for teachers. Class periods adjusted to allow for a screen time break, and transition time between classes will also be followed. We will have a combination of large and small group instruction and independent learning each week. Again, related services and social emotional learning supports will be provided in real time versus independent learning. For our 7th through 12th grade students, each class will begin with a group experience that will include community building time, attendance, and the teacher will be setting expectations for the learning that day and for that class via learning targets. Group learning opportunities for students can be recorded for families to access at a later time if their schedule prevents students from participating during the scheduled time. Independent learning experiences will supplement group learning experiences. Every effort will be taken to be as flexible as possible while maintaining the equity of access to the instructional program. So like Dr. Myers announced, our first official day of school for our students is September 14th. The elementary school hours will be from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. across the district. Our secondary school hours will be 8:30 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. And again, that will be across the district. We have made the decision to move all superintendent conference days to the beginning of the school year. So the first 4 days of the school year, which are September 8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th, will be devoted to our superintendent's conference day for professional development for our staff to fortify our instruction. To date, RCSD has made Chromebooks available to students in grades 5 through 12 for the 2021 school year and has provided MiFi devices to families without internet availability. Rochester City School District will assure that every K through 12 student who lacks reliable connectivity has the opportunity to access high-speed broadband with MiFi devices. We also have plans to distribute Chromebooks to students in grades K through 4 from their home schools through the start of the school year in September. MiFis will be distributed to students in grades K through 12 that lack reliable internet service. Now we want to continue communicating with our families and engaging our families. So to receive the most updated information, we ask our families to go on our website, which is rcsdk12.org/reopens. We will also be utilizing a robocall system, like the robocall that you received to remind you of this meeting tonight, and social media to share information with all of you. We do have a new Power School Parent Portal app, and you will be getting information about how to upload this app on your cell phone, on your smartphone. As always, please reach out to your school, to your child's school, to update contact information if needed. So if you are going to be moving, if your phone changed, if your email changed, please make sure that you contact your child's school because we need that current information so that you receive our robocalls and additional information. School meals are still available for students at the following locations that you see in the screen. Breakfast and lunch will be provided. In addition to that, we're going to continue to offer food distribution to students as selected sites that are still being worked on, but hopefully by the end of next week, you will have a list of those sites on our website, and we're looking at about 20 sites around our city. We also have our Chief of Operations with us tonight, and he will be answering some of your questions regarding the food distribution. Resources and referrals are available to address mental health, behavior, and emotional needs of students, faculty, and staff when school reopens. K through 6 social emotional learning will happen in morning meetings, Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. And 6 through 12 social emotional learning check-ins and connects will also happen Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, our athletic events and practices are canceled until further notice. But please continue to visit our website for updated information. I know our athletes and students that participate in extracurricular activities are looking forward to starting a new season. So check our website for additional information and most current information. So attendance will be taken daily while we are on online instruction. It will be period by period on PowerSchool, and a student will be marked present if a student completes their daily assignments, either online or offline. If a student has a daily check-in, a two-way communication with the appropriate teacher, they'll also be marked present. Simply not logging in virtually is not sufficient reason for considering a student absent. If there's no contact with a student, parent, or caregiver, or no evidence of engagement, the student then will be marked absent. When students are unable to participate in live instruction, teachers can use other methods of contact for continuing and counting attendance. School personnel must attempt to make contact before marking students absent. A teacher may change a student's attendance based on evidence of work by that student. With regards to our special education services, each student with disabilities in the district will have an individualized distance learning plan written to reflect how the district will implement the student's special education programming and related services in the remote learning model. Case managers will develop the individualized distance learning plans in collaboration with parents and caregivers. The distance learning plans will contain critical information about the student's current performance, and it will outline programming and services through remote learning, describe any accessibility or assistive technology needs, including in the student's IEP, that are needed for the student to access virtual learning. It will outline special education accommodations, modifications, and supports included in the student's IEP. These will also be provided for the students during distance learning. Students with disabilities will receive daily synchronous instruction provided by both the special education and/or the general education teacher. Additional asynchronous instruction, and remember that's the one when the student is not logged in right then and there with their teacher. So additional asynchronous instruction will be provided and supported to address the IEP goals and objectives. A DSE parent student support line for remote learning will be available on a daily basis to assist with asynchronous learning activities and troubleshoot individual learning needs. Students with disabilities will be provided related services as outlined on their IEP through telepractice. RCSD will continue to support our bilingual students and our English language learners by providing remote learning models consistent with the student's grade level and the instructional plan. So our ELL students will still continue to receive their English as a second language classes, whether they're push-in or pull-out services as well. We have made an amazing partnership with the City of Rochester, and we will be utilizing the R centers that will be open as learning labs for students in grades K through 6. And as you can see on the screen, there are many of those learning labs here. But if you need specific information on our learning labs, you can visit our website, and you could also visit the Rochester City website. So August 24th, we are going to begin mailing access codes for the new PowerSchool Parent Portal app that I mentioned. This app, you will be able to see if your student was marked absent or present. You will be able to see their grades as well and what work they have been submitting. On September 1st, schedules will be in the mail to all our parents. We're going to start mailing schedules September 1st. Please remember that we will have 4 days of staff professional development starting on September 8th through September 11th. And September 14th, mark your calendars, that is the new first day of school for all our students. School calendars will be mailed home in September to reflect these and other most recent dates and changes. The district is going to continue reevaluating our remote learning decision through the first 10 weeks of school. Our superintendent will be working with the Monroe County Health Department on contact tracing and testing for when school resumes in person. And she will continue to provide our families and staff weekly updates. Thank you, Mrs. Mohammed. Oh, you are muted.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent. We will now begin our question and answer session. The first question is going to be to our Chief of Specialized Services. How will you meet the needs of children who require services such as occupational therapy, speech therapy, and using a virtual model?
Good evening, parents and Rochester community. Thank you for that question. So we will be able to meet the needs of our students that receive all related services, speech, OT, PT, psychological counseling, via telepractice. So students will continue to receive their services, whether it's through group therapy or individualized therapy, through their service provider, through our telepractice platform. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. Our next question is going to be for our superintendent. How is remote learning impacting the RCSD budget?
So thank you, Ms. Mohammed, and good evening again to everyone. I appreciate the question. So let me just talk to you a little bit about how that shift, what some of the costs are related to the shift. So certainly the Chromebooks, and remember, we received very generous donations from the community to purchase both Chromebooks, and then we also were able to obtain funds to address the needing additional Wi-Fis. Additionally, we did need to purchase, to get prepared should we have moved into the hybrid model, we purchased cleaning products, personal protective equipment or PPEs, which you've heard quite a bit about, masks, etc. And so we had some funding that we didn't use because of the remote learning last school year. So that was used to purchase. And right now we're actually tallying to see where we are. So the goal is to really not have a major impact to the budget, but we continue to be mindful of those costs. But we are extremely grateful for the significant donations that we received. Folks have donated masks to us and other equipment. But as far as a specific number. We will be updating the board once we know where we are a few weeks from now and if we're going to go into the hybrid model, and we'll be able to report that.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Mhm.
The next question will be for our school chiefs. Will K through 6 Zoom sessions be recorded so that when parents get home, we can have access to the lessons for that day?
Good evening to our parents and community and caregivers. Thank you for joining us this evening. In terms of the question, our K through 6 classes will be available through various modalities. Teachers will be posting the information that they have done on either the Seesaw learning platform or the Google Classroom platform. There is an application that will allow teachers to post screenshots of their lessons to support students and families at additional times to be successful with the work that will be provided. So those are some of the ways that we'll have access for parents and students outside of the normal instructional day. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Green. The next question is also for our school chiefs. Will my child be taught by their teacher every day?
Good evening, Rochester families. Students will be taught Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday through both synchronous and asynchronous instruction. Synchronous being real time with the teacher on screen. Asynchronous would be learning that students do independently. Wednesday will be a strictly asynchronous day where students will be learning remotely via activities provided by the teacher.
Thank you, Dr. Peluso.
Ms. Muhammad, could I just add one thing, if you don't mind? We actually will be adding to the platform. I'm very excited to share this. I worked with the Rochester Museum and Science Center, and they have a myriad, many opportunities and links for our youngest learners all the way up to our scholars in high school, where they can learn about science, where they can learn about technology, the planets, etc. So that will also be able to supplement asynchronous time, and especially in the STEM field. And that's just kind of newly breaking, and very excited to be able to add that to the website and make that available for students and families.
Thank you, Superintendent. That is awesome.
It is.
The next question is going to be for our school chiefs again. Will my child have interactions with their teachers outside of full class learning time?
Yes, good evening, families. The answer is yes. And the first step in that process is to really connect with your child's teacher and the school to really understand what their communication and specific systems will be. On a general sense, there are asynchronous times and office hours built throughout the day and the week so that your teacher and your student have the opportunity to connect and include parents as well whenever that is needed. So please be sure to connect with your school so that you have the specifics of how best to communicate with your teachers.
Thank you, Mrs. Webster. The next question is for Mr. Vanderwater. Will the school provide technology to help my child learn at home?
Good evening, everybody. It's been a long day. Yes, we will give every child in grades K through 12 the opportunity to receive a Chromebook. That's the primary device that we're using for our one-to-one deployments. The Chromebooks, to expand a little further, for students that don't have Chromebooks, they'll be able to pick them up at their home school prior to the first day of school. There'll be some dates that'll be coming out through robocall and other modalities of communication. as to when we'll start that deployment.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderwater. The next question is going to be for our superintendent. How will families be engaged, not just informed, regarding changes or new policies that arise?
Thank you for that. That's something that I was just meeting with a team of individuals to talk about. How can we make sure that we not only keep our parents and families informed, but we engage them. So I'm certainly happy to do additional forums like this, because we don't want to catch you off guard relative to what the next steps are going to be. We know that the 100% remote learning environment is in place for the first 10 weeks. So that takes us right around Thanksgiving. So we will be meeting at regular intervals to have conversations about that. And one of the things that I'll share that is coming out, so this is not necessarily two-way, but every Friday I will send out a link to a video for both staff, families, students, etc., just giving an update relative to where we are relative to the reopening plan. But I'm happy to host additional forums so we can receive questions and to solicit feedback. I think, again, what makes it so difficult is because we are remote and we're not in person to have that conversation. But I'm also just thinking about other unique ways that I can try and do that and get out in the community safely. So more information to come, but I do appreciate the question.
Thank you, Superintendent. The next question is for our teaching and learning, specifically arts. Will virtual learning incorporate enrichment classes such as art, music, etc.? My girls went to a summer program, and their summer program encompassed many enrichment classes, which made the whole experience fun for them.
Good evening, and thank you for the question. Virtual learning will incorporate the full spectrum of our arts and electives offerings. Students in grades K through 12 will receive their regularly scheduled music, art, library, PE, health and dance, and theater coursework. Additional enrichment offerings in essentials/special subject areas will be provided to students in grades K through 6 as well. And I can add a little about instrumental if you like, Khadijah.
Yes, I was going to say I have a follow-up question for you.
Mm-hmm.
I understand that instrumental and voice lessons will continue in the virtual environment. What about ensembles such as band, orchestra, etc.?
Thank you. Instrumental and secondary voice lessons will continue in the virtual environment, and we're collaborating with our colleagues throughout the county to determine best practices for virtual ensembles, including a deeper dive into the historical and cultural connections of musical literature, as well as the possibility of utilizing virtual lessons to create those tiled videos that we're used to seeing on social media and television.
Thank you, Dom. The next question will be for our school chiefs. Will students have to sign in and out of Zoom during a day? I think the teacher and student should leave their Zoom on all day so that students can just come back to the screen.
Good evening again. So to that question, Zoom will be provided for each session that the student is scheduled to be. The Zoom link may be the same link for the entire day for that class, but it's not necessarily that the teacher will continue to be on that link, that one link. An example would be the special subject teachers may be coming in to provide support for that class. So the student may have to get off one Zoom and go into another Zoom, as well as doing some of the other periods of the day where they may be working with support staff, related service staff, or multiple staff members. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Green. The next question is going to be for our IMT department. Is there going to be any help for parents of 2 kids in school that need a way to get connected? With their teacher's schedule, there is going to be a problem if the parents only have 1 device in the household.
Absolutely. A matter of fact, connectivity can be a challenge for just about anybody when you have multiple devices in a household. We will be deploying MiFis to any student that doesn't have reliable connectivity in their home prior to the start of the school year. But unlike the deployment of the Chromebooks, where the Chromebooks will be picked up at the home school, the MiFis will be deployed from a centralized location. If there are any transportation issues, please call 262-8700. And we have hotline operators there that'll take your information, and we will ensure that a MiFi, if you qualify and do not have an internet service provider or lack robust internet, you'll be provided a MiFi for your child.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderwater. The next question is in regards to transportation. Will transportation be provided to the R Centers for Learning Lab?
Yes, good evening, everyone. At this point, transportation will not be provided specifically to the R Centers for the Learning Labs.
Thank you, Mr. Schmidt. The next question is going to be for our school chiefs. My son is going to 6th grade. However, when school closed in March, he was in the 5th grade. I'm worried because I feel he didn't learn everything he needed to prepare him for the 6th grade. How will the district make sure children are learning the appropriate skills for the grade level they're entering, especially when schools were closed in the middle of a school year?
That's a question we all are wondering across the state, right? All of us as parents are worried about the missed learning opportunities our children had from being closed from March to June. As a district and as many districts in the state, we've taken a look at our scope and sequence of the standards that students would learn and incorporated missed learning standards from the previous year in this year's standards to make sure that we're bridging the gap and we're accelerating learning so that students could receive instruction at the appropriate grade level.
Thank you, Dr. Peluso. The next question is also for the school chiefs. Will uniform policies be suspended for the year, even if students return?
That is a very interesting question. And my first thought around how to respond to that is to be able to connect you back directly to your school community. So uniform decisions are really determined school by school. And it will be very important for the parent who is concerned to contact the school principal and follow up directly with that person. And we will also follow up with our principals to see what some of those decisions are.
Thank you, Mrs. Webster. The next question will be for our IMT department as well as our school chiefs. Will there be online etiquette guidelines established for virtual learning? For example, will students be asked to be dressed and ready for instruction, guidelines around muting when not speaking, confidentiality restrictions, no screenshots, videotaping of other children?
Good evening again. I'm going to ask Mr. Vanderwater to join me with the response to this question. In terms of etiquette, absolutely, we will share etiquette guidelines. When we do our professional development with our staff currently, we all start our presentations with etiquette on remote professional development. We will work with our schools to make sure we utilize those same etiquette and norms and values when we're on remote learning as well. Mr. Vanderwater, anything you'd like to add?
Absolutely, and I think that's a great question concerning recording. The teacher is really going to be the monitor of the classroom in a Zoom experience and will be able to administer students into the room and also take students out of the room if they view some inappropriate behavior. But as far as the devices that we deploy, the Chromebooks we deploy, the students will not have the opportunity to record from that Chromebook device.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderwater. The next question is going to be for our superintendent. What are the hours for the R Center tutoring and support? How will I be able to get my child to the R Centers if the hours are during remote learning?
Great. Thank you for that question, Khadijah, and to whomever sent it in. So the hours are from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. and a second session is from 10 a.m. to noon. And so this is the hours were created really to just provide some extra support. So at 8 o'clock, some of our students, well, around 8:30, our students will be in the social emotional. So this is to provide an opportunity. This isn't necessarily for tutoring because they'll be in the classroom environment, but to help them get logged on. If there are additional connectivity issues and students need to have a different place to go to, or if a parent is even concerned about just having some adult supervision. So it really just provides the opportunity for students to learn in a little bit of a different environment away from home. There's also the opportunity to have breakfast and lunch, so students will be fed. But it isn't really, I'm sure we could set up some tutoring, but it's really the opportunity to get in those classroom spaces, to get on a laptop or a computer and do work.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
The next question is for IM&T. Will preschool students be given a technology device to participate in remote learning?
I'd like to ask Robin Hooper, who I believe is joining us today, to help me with this response. I do know that they're actively engaging some donors with devices. And Robin, if you'd like to expand upon that, I think you have a very good understanding of what the current situation is.
Thank you, Glenn. This is something that we've been working hard on, myself and Dr. Morris and our department. At this time, we have received a donation to purchase about 200 devices from the United Way through the efforts of Children's Institute. And we've also been working on some other donors. And we found out this morning we may be able to use some other funding that would be available. So we're working very hard on that and know that we will be able to purchase devices and perhaps a large number of them. So there'll be more information to come, but we realize how important this is, particularly in an all virtual program to begin the year. So yes, we're working very hard on this.
I think what's important to add to what Dr. Hooper said is that we want to be mindful of our little ones, though, and the amount of screen time that they have in that interaction. So it's a balance between maintaining good screen time and then doing some other things with manipulatives or other types of appropriate instruction for our pre-K students. So I think that's just important to add. And I know that that is important in the pre-K world and that Dr. Hooper oversees that meaningfully.
And I agree, Superintendent Meyer-Small, thank you for bringing that up, because we are also looking to provide resource kits with materials so that students will be able to engage on that hands-on learning at home as well.
Thank you.
Thank you both for those thoughtful answers. As one of the follow-up questions, there's actually two follow-up questions in regards to pre-K. And the first one is, what exactly does remote learning look like for pre-K students?
Well, let me explain what that would look like a little bit so that people will have a better understanding of it. We will be providing a virtual schedule that parents or caregivers could follow, although they have the flexibility to move things around as they need to. The day would have some virtual components and also some hands-on components and some large muscle activity or outdoor time or time to, run or move around, engage in Simon Says or other things like that. So the way the schedule is set up, students would begin their day with a virtual morning meeting. And that's a time that the teacher would lead the whole group in instruction, a lot about learning their peers' names, learning how to interact with each other, singing songs, perhaps learning a story about interaction or about socialization. It would be an interactive time, and that would be online with the teacher working with all the students at the same time or synchronously. And that would be a 15-minute period. All of our online learning in preschool would be in 15-minute increments because of the attention spans for children at this age level. Then there would be 2 small group lessons provided each day, one in ELA and one in math, and those would be led by the teacher, and those would be synchronous as well. She'd be working with all the students on the content matter all at the same time, and they would be likely using some of the materials that they got in their resource kits to do the activities. So there would be 2 of those, and then a large group time, which would be asynchronous, where students might be doing different things, but the teacher would be leading that virtually. So those segments all add up to 1 hour. In addition, there would be an hour a day where the teacher would have time for students and or parents or caregivers to contact them virtually and be able to show them, for instance, if a child wanted to show their favorite toy or introduce their sister or brother, or the parent or caregiver wanted to contact the teacher and show some work that was done or ask a question, that would be available daily. In addition to that, there would be time that would have to be allotted for children to work on hands-on projects at home, where they would actually be using scissors, crayons, paper, different items that you might find around the home to do their activities. And then again, the large group time that I was mentioning. And our pre-K music teacher would be providing 2 online music lessons per week for all of our pre-K classes. I hope I didn't forget anything, but that's the basic outline of the day. So it's about a 6-hour day for our full day program.
Thank you, Dr. Hooper. And one more question for pre-K. Will pre-K programming in the CBOs follow a model similar to the district pre-K centers?
Yes, our CBO programs, everything we do in our school programs, we try to do exactly the same thing in our CBO programs and provide the same materials. The difference could be for our CBO programs, because they are childcare providers, a parent could seek to have childcare at that center if they chose to do so, either with private payment or a subsidy. And I am talking to our agency providers to see would they be willing to have their childcare staff and others work on the virtual learning while the child's in childcare. So that could happen for some people, because for some families, their child attends the agency both for pre-K and for childcare. So that would be the only difference. The pre-K program is always free, but childcare would have to be paid for either with a subsidy or with private pay. But we are working together to try to ensure that a child attending childcare at one of our CBOs would still be able to access a virtual program, or they could access it at home if they're not going for childcare.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hooper.
You're welcome.
The next question will be for our school chiefs. What will remote learning look like? For example, how many hours will students be online, and what platform will be used?
Good evening again to our families. So the learning platform that we will be using for our pre-K to second graders is what's known as Seesaw. Our teachers are being trained throughout the summer, as well as during the first week in September. We will continue with training as needed. Our platform for grades 3 through 12 will be Google Classroom. Many of our teachers use this platform during our closure in March and will continue to be trained to enhance their opportunities to work with Google Classroom. There will be a full schedule for students every day. The schedules, as we mentioned earlier, will be sent home to our families beginning September 1st. The schedule will include opportunities for students to be involved in synchronous learning, which is directly working with teachers in their school and buildings, and as well as asynchronous learning, which is opportunities for students to work independently, to complete assignments, to work on projects. So the day will be a full schedule, and those schedules, again, as I mentioned, will be mailed home to all of our families pre-K through 12, beginning the week of September the 1st. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Green. I know this was mentioned in the PowerPoint as well as some of the answers from the school chief, but it's a specific question that parents have asked repeatedly. How soon will parents be given and have access to the curriculum and classes their students will be taking?
Good evening, Rochester.
I'm sorry.
Sorry, Khadijah. Good evening, Rochester families. As Dr. Green just stated, they will be mailed September 1st. And then as soon as you receive your student's schedule and have access online, all of the classes will be rostered to either Seesaw for K2 or Google Classroom for 312. And then you'll be able to access the curriculum and assignments and et cetera there.
Thank you, Ms. Orden. The next question is for our Deputy Superintendent. How will virtual learning be tested? Will there be grades or pass or fail?
Here we go. Dr. Morris, do you want to answer that question since you have been working continuously with the subcommittee that is working on setting up grades and assessments?
Thank you. Thank you for the question about assessment and grading. The team is working right now to develop a grading methodology that will be acceptable for each course that is administered pre-K to 12 across the district. So all schools will have guidance about how to administer grades based on the assessments that students take in a remote environment. And also everyone will have guidance about how to grade the tasks and the homework and the classroom assignments that students do in a virtual assignment for remote learning. So all students will receive grades for the work that they do remotely, and also for the assignments and the work that they do asynchronously. So that's when they're not in the actual classroom, they will still have grades. And then those grades will be graded and put into a student's record as it would be in any other classroom environment. So students will still be receiving assessments. So they will still get tests as if they were in person. They will be associated to the content during the regular business of the class.
Thank you, Deputy Superintendent. The next question is going to be for our school chiefs. What if students aren't participating in online learning?
Thank you for that question. Participation for online learning is going to look different in many ways, but if students are struggling to participate with online learning, the schools will first kind of find out why that is, what's the reasoning behind why the student is not participating. Then each building will have a team to kind of work with families and students to see how we could re-engage and engage them in the online learning to ensure that they are successful.
Thank you, Dr. Peluso. The next question is going to be for our superintendent. How will students get breakfast and lunch for those who don't live within walking distance to the food distribution centers?
That's actually a question that should be directed to Mike, our Chief of Operations.
Yes, thanks. Thank you, Khadijah. So we are, as we did since March, we have selected sites. There's 21 currently that are located strategically around the city. So they're available for all families to get to. That number will be maintained. Some of the sites may shift, and we'll have that published early next week. But the number of sites will remain the same, and the logistics or the location, excuse me, in the neighborhoods will also be mindful of where most of our students live. So that we're finalizing that and the logistics, and then we'll be able to actually, if we have some outlying situations, we'll be able to modify some of that and make sure that everybody has a breakfast and lunch every day. It's absolutely essential for our families. We know it's important for our kids, and so we value that very much, and we're going to continue our efforts as we've done since March 16th to continue that across the city.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. The next question is for our Deputy Superintendent. Will school counselors and school social workers be given extra support for assisting students during this time? For example, extra resources or more staff help?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we are working with some community partners to ensure that our school counselors, school social workers, school psychologists are fully supported. We have some partnerships that we are developing with the College of Brockport, student teachers from Rob Wesleyan College, and other community groups that are going to be ensuring that our students are well taken care of. So in a short answer, yes, and it's coming from different parts of the community.
I think what's also important to add is that I met with Center for Youth this morning, and they are actually helping us. They're providing guidelines of how to help students in a virtual environment, and we should be getting that draft, I think, either the end of this week, which is tomorrow, or early next week. So we have so many community partners who are reaching out to us to say, how can we help? We know that remote is the decision that you've made, and we want to do everything that we can to help your students, to help families, and to help staff be successful. So I just have to reiterate my appreciation and gratefulness for everyone in our Rochester community and beyond who are helping us to make this work and making it palatable and making it meaningful for our students. So that's important to add.
Thank you, Superintendent. The next question is for you. The reopening plan states that remote learning will be for the first 10 weeks of the school year. At what point within those 10 weeks will plans be reevaluated? And specifically, what criteria will you be looking for at reopening?
Great question. So we have committed to meeting very regularly, every week and a half to 2 weeks, to review how things are going and progress. So We will start that very shortly. Now, obviously, we won't know how things are going as far as students and teachers and families until after September 14th. But when we think about criteria, we need to look at several things. We certainly need to look at how the instruction is going. So that's something certainly to look at. And then if we need to flex, modify, and adjust, we'll do that. But we'll look at specifically, other school districts are in a hybrid model. So we'll look at how that is going. What were some of their pain points as far as transportation or around masking, around the use of other PPEs, how were you able to manage social distancing, for example, with your little ones? We'll look at all of that information. We also obviously need to be very much so aware of what's the infection rate in Monroe County. We also will be partnering with our Big Five school districts in New York State, and Big Five reference the 5 largest school districts. So by student population in the state of New York, the largest is obviously New York City with over 1 million children. The next largest is Buffalo Public Schools. We're the 3rd largest, Rochester. The 4th largest school district is Syracuse. And then the 5th largest school district is Yonkers. So we'll be working with our school partners across the state to see where they are. And it's my understanding that Buffalo Public Schools is going fully remote as well. The superintendent just made that announcement. So the final piece is two other pieces, I'm sorry, to speak with other school superintendents that have school districts who are similar in size to us. So for example, Pittsburgh is right around our size. So we'll talk to other school districts who are part of the Council for Great City Schools to see how that's working. And we are in constant contact. I'm on speed dial now with Dr. Mendoza to understand, how things are playing out in school. I think it's important to reiterate that while we originally had instituted or submitted a hybrid plan, just given all of those factors that I mentioned that we'll be monitoring, we really wanted to have a focus and emphasis on instruction rather than try to muddle through all of the requirements and demands of being in hybrid. So we will constantly monitor. And I want to reiterate, we're not going to let families know at the last minute what our decisions are. We will notify them and keep them in the loop.
Thank you, Superintendent.
You're welcome.
The next question is going to be for our multilingual department and in part our deputy superintendent. What efforts are being made to include translations into other languages besides Spanish on a regular basis, both for parent mail and robocalls?
Yeah, so we're currently working on translating very important documents. I know that our director for world languages is working on that, and as soon as they are available, they'll be uploaded on our website, in addition to robocalls being in the foreign language. Tomorrow's, I'm happy to report that tomorrow's parent forum will be available in Spanish simultaneously as the English version is. And I know that our principals are responsible to send information to parents in the preferred language. I'm gonna just ask Dr. Green to help us answer that one as one of the chiefs, because I know that she has a little bit more information about that too.
Thank you. In terms of principals sharing that information, as Deputy Superintendent Martinez Davis mentioned, we are making sure that we share information in multiple languages. Our new robocall system will allow messages to be sent outside of Spanish, so there's multiple languages that our new system will be able to handle, as well as Deputy Superintendent Martinez Davis mentioned, our Director of World Languages will be working with all of our schools to make sure we reach our families with a variety of languages. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Green. The next question is for our Chief of Special Education. My son has an IEP and can't do a lot of work on the computer. He requires paperwork and teacher help. How will this be possible?
Okay, good evening again, everyone, and thank you for that question. That is a great question. So again, each student with a disability will have an individualized distance learning plan. And in that plan, our case managers will be reaching out to families and developing that plan together in collaboration. So at that time, that would be the time that we're going to discuss the most effective and the best way that your child and our students are able to access the curriculum and are able to engage in this remote learning platform. So at that time, they will discuss different options. We have learning packets, the different opportunities for our teachers to support our students. So I would just say the distance learning plan is individualized and it will be developed in the way to best support our students and the opportunities to engage our students that would be able to meet their needs. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. The next question is going to be for our school chiefs. How flexible will learning schedules be at home for children navigating childcare obstacles?
Thank you for that question. So I'm going to answer this in two parts. It's really important for us to focus on building regular schedules for all of our children, right? So having predictable, standard, this is what I do when I get up, this is what I do when I turn on and go on to the synchronous schedule that my teacher and school have established is really, really important. So if we prioritize that and then work closely with the individual teachers and the school community to really understand what the range of flexibility is, I think that you will be able to maximize the best of both worlds. So building that predictability and being able to work with your classroom teacher to understand how to utilize their previously recorded or asynchronous learning that can be managed outside of that regular school day.
Thank you, Mrs. Webster. The next question is for our superintendent. At the end of the 10 weeks, we'll begin the flu season. Will the district take this into consideration when reconsidering reopening, because the flu symptoms mimic the symptoms of COVID-19?
That's a great question. And that's one that I've been talking to Dr. Mendoza about. And I know that he is working on developing some guidelines and protocols for us as Monroe County Superintendent. So we can certainly circle back on that, but that is very something that I know people are concerned about because the symptoms are so very close. So that's a question that I can circle back after I get good information from Dr. Mendoza. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. The next question will be for our school chiefs, and IM&T can always chime in as well. Will the elementary school kids be using Google Classroom again? It was a good platform, but a bit confusing in the beginning.
So as I mentioned earlier, Google Classroom is the platform for grades 3 through 12. When we talk about the confusion, some of it has to do with it was a new experience for our students, specifically in grades 3 through 8. That it could have been a new platform that they were not familiar with. And as you know, we started with Remote 101, as our superintendent often reminds us, and we're moving to Remote 2.0, which will give us an opportunity to ensure that our teachers and students are very familiar with Google Classroom and how to access it as well as navigate through it. I will ask that Mr. Vanderwater, anything else you would like to share?
Absolutely. I think some of the confusion also stemmed from the immediacy of which we closed schools last year. Students were used to working in the Google Classroom, in their classroom with the guidance of with a teacher. I think now with additional professional development for our teachers, instructional technology TOAs available to assist families when they come across inhibitors, I think we'll have a much smoother experience now that we're prepared to deliver instruction from a remote setting.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderwater. The next question is for our school chiefs again. It's been mentioned that elementary students' school day will be from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Will there be handouts provided to students that don't have access to a printer?
So most of the activities for the school day will be provided online, and the resources will be stored in both Google Classroom and once again in Seesaw, the app that'll be the program that will be used for K through 2. That being said, our school administration, our school leadership, with the help of their parent liaisons and teachers, will do whatever possible to provide students resources at home to continue with their learning.
Thank you, Dr. Peluso. The next question is for transportation. Historically, RCSD has transported all of their charter and urban suburban students to their respective locations. Will the district continue this service if schools are offering a hybrid model, or will parents be forced to transport their children?
Thank you again. Absolutely. The students for those schools, charter schools, private, parochial, urban, suburban, will be transported to their programs in whatever the schedule whatever the schedule provides them. We will work with those institutions and have that solidified. Those students should be routed by the beginning of next week, and then we'll have transportation letters that will go out to those families by the end of August.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. The next question, it's a placement question. If I choose to place my child in a non-RCSD school for this year, would there be space at their current RCSD school, and will it be guaranteed for the next year?
So unfortunately, we cannot guarantee a seat if you choose to leave the district this year. With students and families transferring in and out, once you leave, that seat becomes available, and then a student would have the opportunity to take that seat. So again, if you leave the district, the seat becomes available to another family, and we cannot guarantee it. If you return and the seat is available, then we will give that seat back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Orden. The next question is for our superintendent. Will parents have the option to send children to school after the 10 weeks? And will they have the option to keep them in a remote learning model if we should return to the buildings?
Let me just make sure I heard that question clearly. So the first part of the question is, can they send their children to school after 10 weeks?
Correct.
Correct. So we haven't made that determination yet of what that will look like, if we will remain in remote learning or if we will shift to hybrid. So as I've shared previously, we will be meeting very regularly to determine if we will phase into the hybrid model. The second piece of that is, if we did shift into a hybrid model or full attendance, would a parent be able to make the choice about remaining remote? And that is absolutely correct, yes. It's about parent choice.
Thank you, Superintendent. Another question coming up for you.
Sure.
Why is the district looking to move, or rather we've moved, the start date by using all 4 superintendent conference days?
So we want to make sure that our teachers and other staff are fully prepared to make this shift. As Dr. Green said, we are calling this remote learning 2.2. We quickly had to pivot or shift from brick and mortar attendance, so coming in person to school, to going fully remote. So there were certainly many lessons that were learned from that. And so we want to fortify or strengthen the learning, the way that remote learning is delivered. So we thought it was best to schedule professional development for those first 4 days. So that first Tuesday after Labor Day, to have intensive professional development that's specifically tailored. So we've already sent a survey out to our staff to find out, what are your specific needs? How can we help you? And we also want to know if there are staff who have who are better at the remote learning, or are more skilled at it, rather, to help a fellow colleague or several colleagues, or even lead professional development. So we want to ensure, to the best of our ability, that our teachers and other staff are ready. And rather than space that out over multiple months, we decided to shift them into that first week. And I want to also share that many other school districts are taking additional days to make sure that this preparation is intact.
Thank you, Superintendent. The next question is in regards to transportation. If and when we do open in 10 weeks, how will you safely transport high school students on the RTS bus?
So RTS, as well as our other transportation contractors and our own internal transportation, will follow the same guidelines. That first and foremost, that the students will be required to wear masks when on the buses. If a student does not have a mask before they get on the bus, one will be provided for them. The buses will be immediately cleaned after each transportation run and disinfected. And if the then in addition to that, the students will also be social distanced on the bus. So in a sense, in every other seat type of a model, where certain seats will be blocked off for any student to sit in. So that's our standard for all of our transportation contractors, and RTS will be following that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. The next question is for our Chief of Special Education. If I request a CSC referral, how will this happen this year?
That's a great question. Thank you. So we have been processing our referrals and completing evaluations remotely since the spring, last spring when we closed. So evaluations will be conducted using telepractice remotely, using our standardized questionnaires, observations, and discussing with our parents different review of records and things like that. One thing to note about a remote evaluation is there are aspects of the evaluation that we really can't complete remotely. So parents do have an opportunity to elect to hold off to complete that comprehensive evaluation until we are back into that face-to-face model, or they can move forward with the evaluation via telepractice, a remote evaluation. So it's the parent's option. They'll work alongside the related service provider with our psychologist, and they would walk them through that. But we are still processing referrals. We are still holding evaluations. Parents do have the option, again, to wait until we're back to face-to-face, or we can move forward with holding evaluations remotely.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. The next question is for our superintendent. It's still not clear to me what the benchmarks clear objective criteria are for reopening. The governor and the Monroe County Department of Health already determined that it is safe for schools to reopen to on-site learning, and all other schools in the region are offering on-site learning. So the first question, what will be different in 10 weeks, and what is considered safe?
Thank you for that question. And that's one that, I continue to rely on working with my team and other experts to help determine that. But I've said from the very beginning when it was, when the expectation was made known to all districts that they needed to submit a reopening plan, that the Rochester City School District's plan could be slightly to significantly different from the other schools in Monroe County. What I think we need to be mindful of are the following. One, the size of our school district. The districts that are smaller, that are closest in size rather, that are near would be the Greece Central School District, which I believe has about 11,000, Webster Central School District that has about 10,000. So they're larger districts, but nowhere near close to size. So size does make a difference as far as transportation, et cetera. The other issue that we talked a little bit about is that the impact that COVID-19 has on Black and Brown communities, on urban communities. Not all, but many of our parents and caregivers are essential workers, or have to report to work, basically the same thing. And so which opens their exposure. And so our district is predominantly African-American and Latinx, Black African-American and Latinx. So as far as determining what is safe, I'll reiterate, we're going to look at how things have occurred and how things are going in certainly neighboring districts, but districts similar to ours in size, the other big 5 school districts, which are the largest 5 school districts in the state of New York. We'll certainly be receiving updates and monitoring what the infection rates are in Monroe County. And also just remember that the governor at any time can issue an executive order that overrides any decision that I've made or any of my superintendent colleagues have made, both locally and across the state. So I know that this situation certainly is not what we want, and we know that it's not optimal, that in-person learning is the best. But again, given all of the guidelines and requirements that were placed upon us, given our size, I felt and made the decision with a group of individuals to have just 100% remote learning for the first 10 weeks.
Thank you, Superintendent.
You're welcome.
As a follow-up, the next question is for our health and safety team. Ms. Darby, based on the CDC recommendations, how will you keep students safe once they return to school?
Hi, thank you, and good evening. That is a very important question. First, we're going to start with age-appropriate education for the students and information for our families. Staff will also receive training. Students and family will continue to receive information on all of this on a regular basis, and what this will include is information on social distancing, proper use of face covers, good hand hygiene, respiratory etiquette. Additional PPE will also be provided to our staff, and barriers will be used when necessary as well. All staff members have to take daily health assessments. Temperatures are going to be taken of staff and students. And if there are any visitors that are required to be here, they will have to go through the same assessment and temperature taking requirements as our staff. Finally, the buildings will be cleaned and disinfected as required by New York State Department of Health. And we're also working on upgrading our filters. And there is complete information about all of this, because there is a lot of it, on our Reopens website. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Darby. Well, that brings us to the end of our answering questions session. We first want to give a huge thank you to the parents for their patience, their continued patience, as we work through the uncertainty of school reopening. Thank you for the opportunity to continue dialoguing with our families and answering some of the most pressing questions. We hope we have been able to provide clarity on the RCSD plan, and will continue to communicate with families as updates become available. We ask that you continue to advocate for your children, as they are your most prized possessions. Reach out to your building teams, the parent liaison, homeschool assistant, teacher, principal, and other appropriate staff. We also ask that you ensure you always have the most up-to-date contact information, including a phone number, email, and address, as we may use any of those methods for contacting you. You can also find up-to-date information on our social media page, at RCSD Parents, or at RCSD NYS. Lastly, I will turn it over to our superintendent for closing remarks.
Thank you, Ms. Muhammad. I appreciate it. Again, I know that starting the school year 100% remote certainly is challenging, but I am a firm believer that a challenge is a flip side of an opportunity. We have an opportunity to provide instruction, teaching, and learning to all of our students, and we will do that in the most meaningful ways that we possibly can. Our goal is to ensure that the lines of communication are open and that we respond to concerns, questions, and feedback that you have as parents and caregivers along the way. We know that you trust us with your child every day that you send them to school. We also recognize that you are sending us your greatest treasure, and that's your child. We continue to work tirelessly to, again, make sure that instruction is fortified and that we can provide a meaningful instructional experience for your child. We thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to participate with us. We also appreciate the thoughtfulness of your questions, and I'm grateful that we had so many of our staff who are able to provide firsthand information to you rather than just hearing from myself or a few of us. I also would be remiss, Khadijah did thank yous, that I'd like to thank our communications team who organized all of this, put this together for us, and made it happen so that we could provide information about our reopening plans. We also I see that we have at least 2 board members, 2 board commissioners, our president and Commissioner Malloy is on with us. So we thank them for their support tonight and just in general when it comes to putting systems and structures in place for our students. We hope that this again was informative, and we thank you for your time. Take care, stay safe, and I will be so excited for the opportunity when I can see everyone in person safely. Take care.